afternoon, and welcome to the Living with Cancer podcast series, episode 29. Today we
Hi,
have
Belinda.
Today we have Machuene in studio with us, and I just want to welcome you and say thank you so much for being willing to share your journey with us. So let's just start off with a little bit of an introduction about who you are and a little bit about your journey.
Hi, Belinda, and thank you for also having me here. I hope you're having a good day so far. So I am Machuene Sejeng, and I live in Limpopo in Palabora. And I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma in 2023. So I've been living post-cancer, but I'm here. I've been sharing a life with the team, living with cancer online. I've got a WhatsApp group and found a cancer family. And yes, so I've been thriving through this. And yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who you actually are besides your cancer. Are you a mom? Are you a daughter? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm not a mom yet. I'm a daughter and an aunt to 3 nephews. I'm a fun person. Well, I think I'm fun. An academic. You were my lecturer at some point. I work in the property sector. I'm an outgoing person, and I'm a preacher as well. So yeah, that's more of who I am. I'm a community person. I love life. I love and value life, even more now post-cancer. And yeah.
What do you do for a living?
I am a shopping center manager. So I work in real estate, property management, and I've been in this since 2023, at the age of 23, and that's what I've been doing. So predominantly just managing shopping centers on a day-to-day basis, from the running of the shopping center to developments of shopping centers, etc., etc.
Awesome, thank you. So let's go back to your journey and when you were first diagnosed in 2023. Take us through, how did you get to that point? How did you know that you had cancer?
Yeah. So by the time I got diagnosed, really, I was pretty much asymptomatic because I had a hectic academic year in 2022, and I just assumed that it was just fatigue. So it really, for me, it started signaling off with fatigue. It was an abnormal kind of fatigue that took a toll on my body. I didn't even think it was cancer. It was so far off from cancer, because by the time I went to go consult with my GP, I had just written my exam, actually. I think I was writing brand. And I was also doing a short course at Tux as well. And I thought maybe my body has taken quite a lot, considering that there was school and work, and just life, just trying to balance all of that. And I need a break. So I went in and I said to him, there's just some funny level of fatigue that I've never experienced before. So I think I need some bed rest. I'm not so sure. So he then said, oh, okay, let me see what I can do for you to revitalize your energies. And then I said to him, there's a blunt pain that I've been experiencing on my left boob, almost towards my axilla, like my armpit. I'm not so sure what it is, but it comes and goes, very, very faint, but really it comes and it goes as and when. And he says, okay, let's check that out as well. At this point, my breast was not swollen, and as I'm saying, the pain was pretty much blunt. So it was not like a sharp pain, and it wasn't persistent either, but it was just something that I had noted. So he says, okay, I have equipment, but I probably won't be able to see exactly what is the issue that brings the pain, but let me send you in for a sonogram at an imaging center. All right. So I think a few days later, I went to the imaging center to the radiologist, and we did a sonogram, and the doctor then said to me, oh, okay, this looks like it's like possible prolactinoma or fibroadenoma. And I asked, what is that? And he said, it seems like your breast might be producing lectin, but because you're not pregnant or you haven't breastfed, the areola is unable to kind of like release, the breast milk. And I said, oh, okay. Then they said, no, we can give you an antibiotics to stop that, Um, Indeed, I went back to my GP and then he prescribed the antibiotics for me. And now the breast started swelling up, you know. So now there was a reaction to the antibiotics. And then as the breast started swelling up, I went back to the doctor again because now it's becoming pretty much engorged and there's now pain introduced to this journey. And he says, okay, at least there's something that is responding to the antibiotics, but then let's finish off this course and then see what comes out of this. And I said, okay, that's fine. So this is maybe November 2022. So we finish off and I cross over to the festive season. January, the breast starts bleeding. I went back to the GP again and I said to him, listen, my breast is bleeding and the antibiotics, look, I'm done with the course. But then the pain had left, but now it's back again. And the breast seems to be a little bit much more engorged than what it used to be then. He says, okay, let's check this out. I'm going to send you again for imaging. And I said, all right. So when I went for imaging, they then said to me, all right, we are seeing a suspicion now, but we are not so sure what this suspicion could be. And I said, all right. So they had sent in, so that process was a little bit tricky and emotional because I think they had sent like an intern to start off with my scans. All right. So this time the intern says, oh no, I'm seeing this suspicion, but with excitement. And I think from a medical student perspective, it was, I don't know, it was like, oh, at least I found something on the job. That's then when they called in the radiologist. And then he then says to me, okay, with this suspicion, I am going to have to request for authorization for a biopsy and see what is happening. And I asked, okay, what could it be? And he says, look, it looks like it's a cancer, but I'm not so sure what type of cancer it is. And it was really casual chat. And I think he delivered the news because really the consultation was pretty much casual. So I think he thought I would be able to take it at that point as he's giving it to me. So yeah, we just continued. And then indeed he requested for authorization and for a mammogram and etc. So I said, okay, what do we do now? So while they're still waiting for authorization, they put me in a small cubicle. And from putting me in that cubicle, I just broke down into tears. I just cried. I think that was when I cried, thinking of what may possibly come out of this. And then I went into the consultation room and then they did the sonogram indeed. And then I went to another consultation room where they do the mammogram scan. And I did that. And then I came back and then they said, all right, we're going to have to take a biopsy of what's happening. So they explained what a biopsy is, etc. And indeed, then they proceeded with it. So they said they're going to take the specimen to the lab so that they'll be able to let me know what's happening. But in the interim, I should then just go back to my GP and then he will then wait for the results. So the results took quite some time. I think they almost took 3 to 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So I think during that period, you're quite anxious because from what you were told then and what you are left with, you now have to process a lot. You don't know where to start. You don't know what it is. And I think that's when my body started taking a lot of strain because of the stress and, fear of the unknown as well. So you're also kind of like hoping that it is not cancer as well. And I mean, because there's no solid direction, there's a lot of Googling, and I would really advise no one to Google their symptoms. Even if your GP or radiologist has said anything and there is no solid conclusion to it, please do not refer to Dr. Google. So by the time my results came back, they came back indeed saying that it is invasive ductal carcinoma. So at first they had said that it is stage 1, and of no special type, if I'm not mistaken, and it was progesterone and estrogen positive. So now I had to learn how to even interpret what the lab results are saying and try and understand what is what. And I think that's actually the day I found out about my cancer diagnosis. I made contact with you, if I remember. And I remember your words. You said to me, relax, just picture your life, what it will look like post all of this. And I drove home. So I work in Palabora, and then I drove home to Polokwane so that I could deliver the news to my parents. And they're in like well in their 70s, but quite learned and informed about just general things. And I think what brought comfort onto me was my dad's response when he said to me, science has advanced, and there's just been a whole lot of research in and around breast cancer and investment in and around it. So the best thing is for us to be able to understand what we are dealing with, and then we take it from there, you know? And I think that's when things started settling in, and I was able to think much more clearly and just a bit calm in terms of approaching whatever that is coming through my way. And yeah, that's how I came about my diagnosis. And then my GP, going back to my GP, he then connected me to my oncologist. And that's when the journey started.
So share a little bit about that journey. So you've been diagnosed, and you meet your oncologist. Your oncologist gets chosen for you.
Yeah.
And then just talk about that experience. And while you're going through that experience, what will be of real value is some of the emotions that you were going through, and friends, family, what was happening there?
So the emotions that I think for me, I don't really necessarily dwell too much on emotions. And I know it sounds like don't try be brave, but I think when I cried the first time in that cubicle, that was when I had released all forms of anxiety and the pain that I had carried. But I needed to also just be practical, get myself together and be practical in terms of thinking what could be the way forward, you know? So for me, the processing of all thoughts and emotions happened then. And yes, my oncologist got chosen for me by my GP. And I think that is great because I did not even know much about cancer. I didn't even know what an oncologist was, to tell you the truth. I didn't even know where I'd be able to locate an oncologist. And I think there was a great rapport when I met my oncologist as well. A young, vibrant guy, and he really is all about trying to curb the scourge around cancer, and just trying to make it seem like we can manage to beat this. So it was not necessarily like, this is your cancer, you need to find your way around it. It's like he onboards you with the journey that we are going to be able to do this. We just need to work together, And so when that happened, I had to gather information, and then I chose my close friends, really. And I was intentional about that. I really just reached out to my high school friends, whom we've been friends since then till date. And I knew that they were not going to get into a panic mode once I relayed the news. So I told them, and then I told my land manager, and that was it. And I think the crew was already ready to prepare researching. They just needed to know what is the starting point, and how do they like change in terms of trying to assist with just emotional stability, mental fortitude, and just so we get things going, and I was pretty much blessed that it worked out in that way, because I think the weight was kind of like distributed, yeah, accordingly. And yeah.
So tell me, you said you didn't like to go and explore the emotions, you just want to move on. And I think most people that go through a cancer journey pretty much do that, because that's how you cope. You just kind of, okay,
Yes.
now I deal with it. Now it's 23, so it's a year and a bit down the line. Check in on your emotions now.
Wow, Belinda. So that is a very valid question, and I'll tell you why. Because now there's a lot of reflection happening. And life post-cancer, you start acknowledging certain dates, right? Like at this point, we're now going towards March. And I'm like, 14th of March was pretty hectic. And something will pop up on Google Calendar that will remind you, like a picture or whatever it is, that will remind you that on the 6th of February, you were at a GP, you went for a second referral, you went for, things like that will pop. Because there's a lot of reflection that is happening, and I'll be very honest with you, a lot of crying is happening right now. A lot of emotional processing is happening right now. And I was thinking about it the other day because I had an emotional breakdown, I think 2 weeks ago. I was just tired, and I was just tired. And I think the fatigue triggered the fatigue that I experienced before diagnosis, and I was like, "Ah, it's not the same level of fatigue, but it reminds me of a place where I used to be, you know? And I just thought I never really, I never really spoke much about it then, because I needed to just really move on to the next thing and understand what is coming, because there's a whole lot of information that comes your way once you get diagnosed. So it's that information, it's processing, it's interpretation of it, it's finding the best solution and answer for yourself at that time. And now it's like, wow. So, and also because my schedule is not as tight anymore, my work, school, life balance is a bit calmer. So there's a lot of tapping into emotions now, genuinely so.
So tell me, it's very interesting. This week I've been recording other podcasts with other survivors, and we talk about this survivorship. And when you're going through your cancer journey, and you're going, and I'd like you to tell me about your treatment shortly, but when you're going through your cancer journey, you're going through treatment, everyone's around you. And then when you're okay, everything's cool, and you kind of move on. It's actually the survivor post the cancer where the emotions set in. I know that mine only set in 5 years after, where I was like, and finally I dealt with it. Especially for individuals like us who don't deal with the emotions immediately. You just kind of get on with it, and everyone says, "Oh, you're so strong," and you're like, "I don't have a choice." And then you get to this place post the cancer, and you never really post the cancer, because you always live with cancer. You always reliving those experiences. You're now in a place where you still living with cancer, and it's a reminder every day. And I think, but everybody's just moved on. But it's only then when you actually really deal with the trauma of being diagnosed.
Yes, that's very true, because now you've left the nest. You've left the nest where you've got your nurses, where you've got your oncologist, where you've got your doctor. So remember at that time, so for me, how it worked out is that it was almost like everyone is on speed dial. So anything and everything that is happening, I had direct contact to say, this is what I'm experiencing immediately. And now it's almost like, ah, but Machuene, you are actually fine. Of all my patients, you are actually doing better. And I'm thinking, no, this is triggering. This is triggering. This is what I'm finding, which is triggering. And you also don't want to be like a pest. You know what I mean? But I do agree that if there's anything, I think this part here, and I don't know if we speak enough about it to say it is the post-cancer part of cancer that is so hectic because there's no actual guideline because of how to do it and how to stay cancer free. Because immediately after you leave, they're like, oh, well, you're done with radiation or you're done with, 16 cycles of chemo. Well done, you did it. And then it's like, and then what? So you're just hoping that whatever you do, you don't trigger for the cancer to come back. Because I do think that at the back of my mind, even though it's not like you brought it on yourself, it may be like genetics, etc. But there is some level of not necessarily self-blame, but you do take consideration to yourself. And you do think that you do not want to trigger anything that can bring this cancer back, you know?
Absolutely. You actually start seeking answers as to how this happened and what do I now need? Because your lifestyle has changed. You're more aware of what you eat, what you do, your stress levels, etc. So before we move on, I just wanted to ask you, tell me a little bit about your treatment journey. What treatment did you have? How long was that?
Yeah. So my treatment journey started I went to theater first. I did my mastectomy before going for chemo. So what happened is that initially I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer, and that was in March. And my oncologist then said, okay, I need to verify that we are just going to do a mastectomy or a lumpectomy. All right. So I need you to go for further scans and so that they could indicate to me how far we are within this, because I've got pretty much dense breasts naturally. So coming back from the second radiologist that now the oncologist was working with, it still remained to say that it was at stage 1, grade 3, growing at a 40% rate, and it was estrogen and progesterone positive. Then the breast continued bleeding. Then he said, I need to get you into surgery ASAP. And we're not going to do a lumpectomy because quite a multiple milk ducts are affected by this. And I said, okay, I was ready to let go of the breast. In fact, I wanted a bilateral mastectomy. So he said, no, you're still young. I'd still want you to have a chance to breastfeed should you fall pregnant in the future. I said, okay, it's fine. Post-surgery, the breasts, they obviously take it to the lab, right? And when it came back, my surgeon then says to me, well, it doesn't seem like it's stage 1 breast cancer. It actually seems like the results say that it's stage 3 because there were 15 lymph nodes that were removed and about 7 of them were involved, and they were removed from my axilla, from towards my armpit. And I said, wow, all right. So then it changed the whole treatment plan. Then my oncologist decided, you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to go for 16 cycles of chemo starting in May, which ended in just about October or September. And then I had 25 sessions of radiation. So it was pretty intense. It was pretty intense, And that ended in December, I think on the 19th of December, 2024.
Last year.
No, 2023, because 2024 I was at work. Yeah. So it was pretty tense. I think the first 4 cycles of chemo, they call it some red devil, but I want to refer to it as a red angel because I think it had quite a lot of intervention in me being here today. So that was pretty drastic. That was tense. and the remaining cycles were okay. They were okay. It was manageable. Yeah.
How did it impact your everyday living now? What happened? Were you able to function? Were you able to work? What happened?
I was able to function, and work awarded me some level of flexibility, and I'm glad that at least to some extent I was able to work, because it kind of like deviated from having to sit and dwell only about the cancer and research only about that, because your life just becomes cancer at that time. You live, you breathe, you speak it. But by the time when I was about to now go for my weekly chemo, I took time off. And that's when I felt that my body needed to rest. My mind now needed to rest. Um, in terms of functionality, I was so glad that my mom is a walker. My dad used to run marathons, and my mom still runs marathons in her 70s. After surgery, my mom was like, 3 days, I think 3 or 4 days after I was discharged, my mom was like, we need to prepare you for the the next marathon that is coming through. So there was never really time, whether I was going to walk 5 kilos or do 10 kilos. There was never really time to just sit and throw a pity party. And I remember when I was speaking to you about it, you were like, join park runs, because park run is the thing. And I was like, I'm actually doing that. So exercise and nutrition played a big role in terms of my outcomes on cancer treatment. And halfway through, or just towards the end of my treatment, I subscribed to an onco nutritionalist, right? And she too was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She was an oncologist that got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and then she stopped treating cancer, but now focused more on nutrition, and that helped. That actually helped out a lot, because food plays a big role. What you fuel your body with plays a huge role, because you could easily be given so many tablets for constipation, tablets for nausea, tablets for headache, never mind the IV drip that goes in, the chemo drip that goes in. So can you imagine how much processing your liver goes through?
Absolutely. I think that whole treatment process is quite stressful, because there's so many things that you consider. And even now, you're thinking about how one simple meal, one glass of wine impacts you, right?
Yes.
And so talk to me a little bit about life post-cancer treatment, because it's not post-cancer. You'll never ever have post-cancer life. You'll always just have either you in treatment, and there's a while until you get to remission. What's that like now? Are you going for regular checkups?
Yeah. So I every 6 months I go for scans. I do the whole MRI, CT scan, bloods. And now, because I'm on every 3 months, I go in for a Lucrin or Zoladex shot. So I'm also on tamoxifen. So I get to see my oncologist every 3 months. So at least I still have that access now. The side effects of my current medication is insane in the membrane. So I think from the side effects from chemo, what I still experience is peripheral neuropathy. So it's my fingers and my feet, the functionality of that. It just takes time for them to register to operate or function properly, but eventually we do get there. And I think I've been trying to curb that with running. It's the weight gain, and from the medication, it is also just being so unfamiliar with my body. So every day it's like a new relationship, like it's new findings and just trying to embrace whatever it is that is happening. Um, and and it's just my headspace in terms of just appreciating myself. And I think it has also just changed relationships It has changed friendships. Like the game has just changed. I'm much more decisive. I'm much more intentional, about life, like about awarding myself, about being much more graceful and considerate to myself over anything and everything, really. Um, so it's pretty much tense, but it's okay because I'm now going. It's today's the 6th. I'm going to see the oncologist on the 11th. It's my 3-month check-in with the oncologist, and yeah.
So normally we have this scan anxiety or yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that because that's real.
Scanxiety. The cancer fam calls it scanxiety. It's a real thing. It's a real thing because it's fear of the unknown, and it kind of takes you back to a place where of familiarity and a place of vulnerability as well, because at that then you didn't know, but now you know. And because cancer is quite sneaky, you may be doing everything right and feeling like your body is responding positively, but you honestly just really never know. So it's yeah, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what living with cancer support group has done for you in terms of your journey.
I think one, a person does need a community. You do need to, I think it's always nice to know that you're not the only one, because I think before you go through cancer diagnosis, you're assuming that it's just you. And I think I've said this before, even in previous interviews, that until you diagnose with cancer, that's when you realize that the queues at the oncologist are longer than the queues at the GP, actually. You know, they are longer, they are longer than casualty queues at a public hospital. And that is just the weirdest thing ever. Like, you then thinking you're the only one. Um, and the thing is, once you even get there, everyone is scared to talk because everyone is still in their fields and still processing whatever they're going through. But once you belong to a community, you realize that people are free to talk about their follow-up checkups. They're free to talk about their recent, find out. They're free to talk about what's currently happening. And it's it's nicer because even if you talk to your partner or a friend, they truly don't really, really understand what it is that you're talking about, especially if you look like you're radiant, you're glowing, and you're good to go. It almost looks like you've got it all intact. Um, but it's only a person who's really gone through cancer who will understand exactly where your headspace is at.
So true. And again, it's that survivorship because this is your next journey, right? As you
Yeah.
go through this, there's a whole lot of emotions, and it's almost like you're starting a new chapter in that book.
Yeah.
So 100%.
Yeah.
You'll
I
find.
want to say something which is quite interesting because once you join a Living with Cancer, so like a platform like that, it's actually more encouraging when you don't hear of the people that we are in the group with that have, like, constant passing on, like so and so has passed on. A year and a half has gone by, probably just one member, really, but everyone is pretty much still thriving through in their respective lives.
And I think that's because part of it is cancer is often seen as a death sentence, right? And but it is a reality. And you're right. We've got some really strong warriors on that group, which is amazing. And I'm just grateful they are as well as they are. So I think we can chat the whole day. We've got to wrap up now. Just some final words from yourself. If you just reflect on the journey that you've been on, and kind of your future, where you're going. What's kind of your headspace?
What I do know about cancer is that you fight fear with faith. You just need to really amp up your faith. And for me personally, I never used to be, I was just an academic and a career girl. So I never really had the vision of having a family, welcoming love. And now I'm in a good place for all of that. So I'm looking forward to what life has to bring. And I'm intentional about it. I'm intentional about trying. I'm now going through treatment, I also went through the whole fertility, remedying my fertility issues, etc. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm scared because I'm just scared, but I'm looking forward to just being much more intentional about life and welcoming companionship.
Oh,
It's nice that
beautiful.
side.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's been such an honor to sit and listen to your story. And I know we've journeyed together. I don't always remember all the detail of every story, but I do remember having conversations with you. And thank you for sharing them, and thank you for what you do on the Living with Cancer group. And I can see only a bright, beautiful future for yourself ahead. So definitely a warrior. Thank you. And thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Belinda.